The observation deck of the Celestial Spire hummed with the low thrum of 1,000 monitoring systems, each one trained on the planet below. Commander Talvin Starhawk stood at the central viewport, his four eyes fixed on the dense jungle continent dominating the southern hemisphere. His scales rippled with barely contained tension, a biological response his species had evolved over millennia to signal danger to the pack. "Commander, the human shuttle has landed in Grid 12, reported his communications officer, her voice carefully neutral. Dr. Selene Var is proceeding with the xenobiology survey as planned. CT-9's primary eyes narrowed. The humans, even after 3 years of alliance, even after they had proven themselves invaluable in the Crush Wars, still remained a mystery to his people. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity's tactical brilliance, their stubborn refusal to surrender, and their uncanny ability to weaponize anything from stellar radiation to their own biology. But fear and understanding were entirely different things. "Maintain visual contact," he ordered, "and keep the intervention teams on standby." The planet below, designated Virelia Prime, was a proving ground for the Galactic Council's latest initiative, cataloging Death World species for potential integration into civilized space. Naturally, it was a human idea, only they would look at creatures evolved in environments that killed 90% of colonization attempts and think of them as potential allies rather than existential threats. On the main screen, Selene Var's helmet cam provided a first-person view of the jungle floor. She moved with the peculiar grace all humans seem to possess, the way predators glide, which made Talvin's ancestors hide in burrows. Her breathing was steady, controlled, despite walking through territory that housed creatures capable of tearing through reinforced armor. "Incredible biodiversity," Selene's voice crackled through the comm system. "I'm reading 17 distinct species within a 50-meter radius. The ecosystem here is more complex than anything we've cataloged on the outer rim." Talvin watched as she knelt beside a cluster of luminescent fungi, taking samples with practiced efficiency. Around the observation deck, his crew watched in fascinated silence. Humans on Death Worlds were always compelling to observe, like watching someone juggle fusion cores while walking across a plasma field. Then the sensor array screamed a warning. "Commander," his tactical officer's voice cracked with alarm. "Apex Hunter 300 meters closing on Dr. Var's position. Classification, Obsidian Talon. Estimated mass, 400 kg. Threat level, extreme." The observation deck erupted into controlled chaos. Crew members rushed to their stations. Weapons systems powered up, and the intervention shuttles began their launch sequences. On screen, Selene froze, her hand moving slowly toward the plasma pistol at her hip. "Dr. Var, you have an apex predator incoming," Talvin transmitted, forcing his voice to remain calm. "Recommend immediate extraction." "Negative, Commander," Selene replied softly. "I'm tracking it." Through the helmet cam, they watched as the Obsidian Talon emerged from the undergrowth. It was magnificent and terrifying, a creature of midnight black kitten with serrated edges, 6 legs ending in claws capable of shearing through tree trunks. Its head bore a crown of sensory spines that tasted the air for chemical signatures, and its mouth housed rows of teeth capable of crushing durasteel. Every instinct Talvin possessed screamed at him to order a strike. His claws hovered over the weapon's authorization panel, but Selene didn't run. She didn't even reach for her weapon. Instead, she slowly lowered herself into a crouch, making herself smaller, less threatening. Her breathing remained impossibly steady for someone facing a creature evolved to kill efficiently and without mercy. The Obsidian Talon approached, its sensory spines quivering. Then it did something that made every being on the observation deck freeze in disbelief. It chirped. Not the aggressive territorial scream they had heard in previous encounters, not the hunting cry that preceded an attack, but a soft, almost plaintive sound vibrating with uncertainty. "Oh," Selene whispered, recognition shone in her voice. "Oh, you poor thing." Through the helmet cam, they saw it clearly now. The obsidian talon wasn't fully grown. It was barely a juvenile, perhaps only a few months old. Its kitten still carried the dull sheen of youth, and its movements, though predatory, had an uncertain, inexperienced quality. "Commander," CT-9 transmitted urgently, "that creature is still extremely dangerous. Its juvenile status does not." "It's scared and hurt," Selene interrupted gently. "Look at its left rear leg." The camera zoomed in. A deep gash in the creature's exoskeleton wept dark ichor that attracted swarms of smaller parasitic organisms. On a death world, such an injury was usually a death sentence. What happened next would be analyzed and debated in xenopsychology classes for generations. Selene Var extended her hand. The juvenile obsidian talon hesitated, its sensory spines twitching as it processed the impossibility. A prey species offering comfort rather than fleeing. For a moment that stretched into eternity, predator and human regarded each other across an evolutionary gulf that should have been unbridgeable. Then the creature moved forward and pressed its massive head against Selene's palm. The observation deck fell into absolute silence. Selene's other hand came up gently, examining the wound. "It's okay," she murmured, her voice carrying that particular human tone used with injured creatures. "I've got you. We're going to fix this." The predator, designed by evolution to be the perfect killer, remained perfectly still, occasionally chirping softly. Selene carefully cleaned the wound, applied medicinal foam from her field kit, and began bandaging it with supplies meant for her own species. "Are you seeing this?" the communications officer whispered. "The entire fleet is seeing this," CT-9 replied quietly. For several minutes, Selene finished treating the wound, then slowly stood, taking a step back to give the creature space. The baby obsidian talon looked up at her with eyes gleaming with previously undocumented intelligence. Then it did something unprecedented. It bowed its head, touched its sensory spines to her boot in a gesture of gratitude, and disappeared back into the jungle with a speed that belied its injury. "Commander Talvin, you still there?" Selene tapped her calm unit. CT-9 realized he had been holding his breath, a human expression he had unconsciously adopted. "I'm going to need to extend my survey time," she said calmly, "and I'll need authorization to establish a long-term observation post. If one juvenile can demonstrate that level of cognitive flexibility and social intelligence, we need to completely reassess our understanding of this species." As Selene continued her survey, moving deeper into the jungle with that fearless human stride, CT-9 turned to address his observation deck. His crew stared back at him with expressions mirroring his own bewilderment. "Begin comprehensive analysis of the interaction," he ordered. "Explain how she knew that would work," asked Kyrex, the xenopsychology specialist, shaking her six-eyed head slowly. "Commander," she said, "I don't think she knew. I think she simply cared despite the danger, despite every logical reason not to." CT-9 looked back at the screen where Selene was cataloging plant samples while humming softly. Somewhere in the jungle behind her, a baby apex predator nursed its newly bandaged wound and remembered the strange prey creature who had shown it kindness. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity's capacity for violence, their tactical genius, their stubborn refusal to accept defeat. But perhaps CT-9 thought they had been focusing on the wrong traits. Perhaps the most dangerous thing about humans wasn't their ability to fight and kill. Perhaps it was their ability to look at a baby predator designed to tear them apart and see not a threat, but a child in need of help. And perhaps that was why, despite all logic and reason, humanity kept surviving in a galaxy that should have destroyed them long ago. Because compassion, it turned out, could be just as powerful a survival trait as aggression, sometimes even more powerful.